It's true that Poles fought on all fronts in the Second World War and often fought in different uniforms, those of our enemies. Many fought in German uniform. And who were they? Were they coerced? And what happened to them after the war? For many, it's a controversial topic and ignites controversial opinions. So, join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
The Free City of Gdańsk and the Pomerania region were the first territories captured by Nazi Germany during its September invasion of Poland. The port city of Gdańsk was inhabited by 300,000 people in 1939, mostly German-speaking Danzigers. Meanwhile, Poles constituted up to 33,000 of the Free City's multi-ethnic population. Having captured the city and the Pomerania region, the Germans first recruited ethnic Germans, but after the German army began suffering losses on the eastern flank, the Third Reich began recruiting Poles and Kashubians, a Slavic group native to Pomerania. To highlight these events, the city of Gdańsk has organized an exhibition called Our Boys, which showcases photos, documents and testimonies of Poles forcibly drafted by the Nazi German army. This is the first time ever that an exhibition dedicated to this part of Poland's World War II history was unveiled. Its title and content have sparked an outcry, including from Poland's president.
Portraying soldiers of the Third Reich as ours is not only a historical falsehood, it is a moral provocation, even if the photos of young men in uniforms of Hitler's army show Poles who were forcibly conscripted into the German military.
However, Poland's case is not unique. Nazi Germans carried out similar forced conscriptions in other countries, Luxembourg for instance. The title of the Polish exhibition, Our Boys, is a direct reference to the phrase Onsjungen, which Luxembourgers used to refer to their forcibly conscripted loved ones. The Regional Museum of Forced Recruitment in Dudelingen, Luxembourg, hosts a permanent exhibition on the topic. Some critics of the exhibit felt unnerved by an alleged lack of statistical data and how the motivations of Poles joining the Wehrmacht were presented.
In this exhibition, I cannot seem to find concrete statistical information on how many people willingly fought and how many people were forced to join the Wehrmacht. It's written here, the recruits often felt fear, despondency, but excitement caused by new experiences and the prospect of seeing new places.
With around 80 years into the events, it's difficult to authoritatively indicate individuals who were forced to join the Wehrmacht and distinguish them from those who did so willingly.
I'm delighted to be joined today by Dr. Dawid Gralik. He's a historian at the Department of History at the Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań. Welcome to the programme.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me today.
Great to have you. Let's tackle this very controversial new exhibition in Gdańsk. It's entitled Our Boys, and it deals with the forced enlistment of young Pomeranian men into the German armed forces during the Second World War. Now, first, before we go into the structure of this operation, this experience, why is this exhibition, why has it sparked so much controversy among historians and the public?
I think that it's connected mostly because of the name of this exhibition, which is, in my opinion, very unfortunate, because this name, Our Boys, suggests that the service of Poles in the Wehrmacht was something positive. It might create such feelings, in my opinion, and that's why it makes a lot of controversies, because when we analyze, for example, how politicians are talking about this exhibition, for example, like President Duda, there are people which haven't seen this exhibition yet, so they can only talk about a general overview and the title, which can be claimed as controversial.
I suppose if you're a Pomeranian mother and your son has been sent off to join the Wehrmacht, you will call them Our Boys, or if you're from a Pomeranian regional aficionado, you'll call people from your region our boys. It does seem to be an ambivalent title.
I think that the thing is that this, as I said, that this title can be, that the people can think that this narrative is quite positive. I mean that some people can say that service of Poles in the Wehrmacht was something positive, which obviously wasn't. And there's also a second thing that some people will only see the title of this exhibition, so they will discuss this exhibition without seeing it. So it creates a lot of discussion when we don't discuss the exhibition itself, but only the title and the general overview.
Yes, I mean one of the controversial texts is that letters from these young men seem to indicate that they're excited at the prospect of foreign travel, which presumably is a natural, even given the context of the war, is a natural thing to feel, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, because for these young boys, when they served, for example, in foreign countries from pre-war perspective, like France, Italy, Norway, there were some Poles who served even in North Africa. So from the most of these men, that was their first foreign trip. So they had an opportunity to see new cultures, new people, new languages. So they could feel some excitement, but it doesn't mean that they weren't also terrified that they must serve in the German armed forces.
How did this process work? Because the controversy seems to centre on whether these young men were conscripted forcibly, or they joined voluntarily. It seems to centre on that. How did the process of being conscripted into the German army work?
First thing I must say that there were almost no Polish volunteers in the German armed forces during World War II. Of course, we've got some examples of or more like attempts to create Polish formations in the German army during World War II. For example, we've got example of so-called Highlander Legion, which was an attempt to create from the people who lived in the Tatry region. There was a whole initiative called Korallenvolk. So there was a group of Highlanders who collaborated with the Germans, but it wasn't common situation for that people, because when the decision was to create this legion, they started to conscript people.
Drift away.
Yeah, they drafted, and there was something like 200 volunteers, but most of them deserted during few days or weeks. So in general, in Waffen-SS served like 20 of these men. And if we discuss Poles in Wehrmacht, which is kind of different issue, they were just conscripted. They were forced to serve for Germany. Of course, we've got.
Excuse me, is that because that area was integrated into the Reich and they had to sign the Volksdeutsche and stuff like that?
Yes, exactly, because Poland occupied by Germany was divided into two parts. One was incorporated to the Third Reich, which is Silesia, Greater Poland, Pomerania, and the Białystok district after 1941. And there was the part of Poland which was general government, which was just occupied Polish territory, governed by the Germans, and some of regions from eastern Poland were in the German commissaries in the eastern occupied territory.
And were by signing a Volksliste, a list of being at different degrees of Germanness, were the families pressurised to sign these lists because they got better treatment or better ration scale, that kind of thing?
Yes, of course they were, because they were afraid of being evicted, because it was the German tried to make these lands purely German. So for them, there was no way to live on that lands if they weren't Poles. Germans, sorry. Okay. So they were forced, and they just decided to sign this list to be safe.
Okay, we'll have a look at our next clip, and we'll take a more historical perspective on Poles serving in foreign armies.
World War II is not an exclusive case of Poles fighting under foreign flags. Take the Haitian Revolution, for example. In 1802, Poland sent an expedition to suppress the uprising. Among the troops were some 5,000 Polish legionnaires, veterans of the Polish legions, formed under French command after Poland's partitions. Recognizing the parallels between the Haitian struggle and their own fight for Poland's independence, some of those Polish soldiers ultimately turned against the French and joined the Haitian rebels. During the partitions of Poland, spanning from 1795 to 1918, Poles were forcibly conscripted into the armies of all three occupying powers, often sent to fight each other on foreign fronts. In regions like Greater Poland, Pomerania and Silesia, Poles made up the majority in units such as the 7th West Prussian Infantry Regiment No. 155 and the 3rd Poznań Infantry Regiment No. 58. These formations would find themselves battling Polish compatriots. It was not just recruits or low-ranking officers who fought for their oppressors. Consider Walenty Czerkawski, who as a teenager fought for Poland in the January uprising, only to later serve in the Russian army during the Caucasus campaign against the Turks. His story is far from unique. Then came World War I. Poles clashed yet again, this time at battles like the Battle of Tannenberg in August 1914, where German forces fought against Russian troops, or the Battle of Limanova that December, pitting Austrians against the Russians. Now, would you believe that the founding father of interwar Poland, Józef Piłsudski himself, was once a spy for Austria-Hungary around 1908? But Piłsudski's story, and that of most Poles, wasn't one of servitude. It was one of strategy, learning, waiting, and striking when the time was right to restore Poland to the map after 123 years of disappearance.
There's a quote, Professor Norman Davis in his book God's Playground. "It is a sad fact, but Poland has been obliged by circumstances to act as one of Europe's principal nurseries of cannon fodder." That's basically the tragedy of Poland since the 18th and 19th centuries, isn't it?
Yes, I can agree with this opinion of Professor Davis, yes.
And what were the policies of the partitioning powers in the 18th century? Just reclassifying everybody as every Pole as a citizen of the empire, or a subject of the Tsar, a subject of the Kaiser, and then just drafted into the army? What was the policy?
Yes, it was exactly like that, because when they became part of these states like Russia, Prussia and Austria, they also had to serve in this army. It was obvious that it will work like that after these lands were incorporated to each state, yes.
And how were they sent? Were they sent, for example, in far-flung corners of the empire? We've seen an example of one guy who fought in the January uprising 1863, and then they were posted somewhere into Central Asia. Is that the policy of the imperial powers?
Yes, it was a common policy in, I think, every state in Prussia, Austria and Russia also. The reason for that was very simple: to avoid the risk of desertion of this man, because it was easier to desert in a land when you know language, you know terrain, you can speak with ordinary people, and it's much harder to desert when you don't know terrain, you don't know people.
And you mentioned this fact in our first half of our discussion about Poles being captured during the service in the Africa Corps in the desert. How were Poles generally treated in these imperial armies? Were they suspected of being always disloyal and kind of doubtful as soldiers?
I think this issue is very complicated, I think, and it's not easy to make a general opinion about that. But I think that that the army was a tool to make loyal servants from the people by serving in the army. Also, just after the partitions, I think every state, every partitioner state tried to somehow encourage Poles to be loyal citizens of that state by creating purely Polish units, like, for example, some so-called companion regiment in the Prussian army, like Polish Ulan regiment in the Russian army, for example, or Ulan regiments in the Austrian army.
Now, there was maybe an apocryphal tale about exactly this point. Two regiments of Polish Lands, or Ulans, clash in the Battle of Wagram, 1809. One fighting for Napoleon, the kind of Guard Lancer regiment, and another the Schwarzenberg Ulans fighting for the Austrians. And it's said that they clashed together and exchanged insults in Polish because the Austro-Hungarian was
exactly.
was recruited in Galicia.
Yes, exactly.
Does this happen often, where two sides actually know that Poles are on the other side of a trench or a battle?
Yeah, we can find several examples of that. I think the First World War is a great example of that state, when Poles had to serve in every army, so Russian, German, and Austro-Hungarian, because in this conflict served about 3 million Poles. So it's a very large number. So there was a big possibility that they will face each other in combat.
And did they inherit the traditions of their respective armies?
Officers did, and it was a problem after 1918 and creating the army of the Polish independent state, when we can see that, for example, there were some attempts to use regulations from the origin armies. We can see it, for example, in cavalry units, when some officers try to even continue traditions of their old regiments.
How does Polish historiography treat these armies, the Poles and the units that were formed? You yourself said that you're an advocate of this kind of a new form of military history, which deals with, I suppose, the mentality of the soldiers, the emotions that they experienced, rather than just maps and arrows. How does modern Polish historiography treat, say, the armies that fought with Napoleon or with the Prussian army? Is it something to be proud of, or something to be controversial about?
I think that when we discuss service of Poles in the 18th of the 19th century, it's in fact it's not very controversial. I think that historians try to have a balanced opinion about it, and the biggest issue is World War II period, which we also discussed today, and this is this period which creates the most emotions in the public sphere, when the issues from the previous periods are more like dominion of historians nowadays.
Yeah. We'll round up our discussion with going back to the exhibition and the experience of the Polish soldiers in the Wehrmacht. How were they treated within the Wehrmacht, and what was the attitude of the authorities if and when they returned after the Second World War?
the Germans tried to be very, very careful with Polish soldiers because they knew that there is a high risk of desertion of this man. So, for example, they tried to not to put too many Poles in one unit, for example, and they tried to have like, I don't know, 5% maximum of Poles in one unit. So they would be able to, for example, make a conspiracy or something like that. Of course, Poles served in Wehrmacht in many fronts, like Italy, when in fact many Poles deserted to the Polish Second Corps, for example, of General Anders. Also in France, Norway, also on the Eastern Front, which was the toughest, in fact, because we know that this front was the most brutal front of the World War II. And after the war, in fact, there was no massive repressions of this man, because in general the people knew what was the situation, that these people were forced to serve. And when we see a list of the people who served in the Wehrmacht, we can see many famous names, like for example Gralik, a famous Polish footballer. So I think that it wasn't a problem with having a career after World War II.
And a final question to you: does this exhibition and the controversy that it seems to have engendered show us that the whole experience is not surprising to you as a professional historian, but once the politicians get hold of it and it starts becoming a national narrative, that's when we start to get controversies and simplifications, perhaps?
Yeah, I think the problem is that we need to discuss this exhibition in the context of so-called politics of history, so how history is used in the public sphere, because we see first examples when existing of this exhibition is used in politics, even in international politics, for example, by the Ukrainians. We've got some tweets, for example, opposed by some Ukrainian publicists and historians who say that this exhibition is a proof that Poles were collaborators. They supported the Germans
more than the Ukrainians because there were more of them drafted.
Yes, exactly.
Is there any similar exhibition that deals with the Poles drafted into the Communist army on their way to and from Berlin? Is that a better documented episode?
The more documented, I don't think so, but I think that both of these themes they're not very popular because there are a lot of controversy, and in general, the service of Poles in the Eastern forces created during World War II is in fact forgotten after the fall of communism in Poland. Of course, we've got several historians who try to research this area, such as Dr. Kamil Andua, but there is a lot of work to do with both of the topics, both in the Wehrmacht and also in the formations on the Soviet side.
Well, we can at least hope in the greater perspective of history that this is an event that won't get repeated. Thank you very much, Dr. Gralik, for coming on to our programme.
Thank you very much.
So that's all we have time for. Do join us next time. You know the time, you know the place.